Hello, welcome to BBC Newsline. I'm Declan Harvey. The headlines this evening. Tributes are paid to the two younger people killed in a road crash at the weekend in County Antrim.
These would have socialised, of course, locally, and a whole network of people they grew up with, people they went to school with in this area. Such a terrible waste, terrible tragedy.
Education Minister Paul Given said the Christian ethos in schools here will be maintained after a court judgment found that the way religion is taught in the classrooms is unlawful.
It's been closed for more than a year, but Durham Street in Belfast city centre is to reopen just in time for Christmas.
Councillors discuss renaming a local street in Carrickfergus called after Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. Hundreds attend a memorial service commemorating the 75th anniversary of a rail crash in County Tyrone.
Rugby is broken and changes are required, says former international Stephen Ferris, after Ireland's chaotic defeat to world champion South Africa.
And we had plenty of dry and sunny weather today. Will it be like that tomorrow? I'll have the details shortly.
It's the 24th of November. In County Antrim tonight, a community is reeling from what one local priest has called a terrible tragedy. Two younger people, both in their early 20s, lost their lives in a crash near Glenavy. They were Layla Douglas and Mikey Brown. Kevin Sharkey has this report.
Mikey Brown and Layla Douglas were travelling together when they died in the crash on this country road. At the scene today, flowers and tributes.
These would have socialised, of course, locally, and a whole network of people they grew up with, people they went to school with in this area, and they went to school around here as well. So all those connections, all of them will be touched by this.
The road remained closed yesterday as investigators examined the cause of the fatal crash. Away from the scene, grieving families mourned their loss. Layla Douglas was from the Marafelt area. Mikey Brown lived in the community where he lost his life.
Young Mikey was very well known in this area and around Glenavy here, and a young fella full of life and enjoyment and gets doing things a young man at that age would be doing. So just the whole thing is a terrible tragedy and just totally unexpected. Family are devastated by it, of course, you know, and it's just so very, very sad. The loss of a young fella, a young boy, a young man whose all of life was ahead of him. And it's such a terrible waste, terrible tragedy.
Relatives and friends have also been paying tribute to the victims on social media. Layla Douglas, remembered by her heartbroken father as his one and only baby girl. The driver of the other car involved in the crash was taken to hospital for treatment. Investigations will now focus on what caused the collision, in which two young people lost their lives. Kevin Sharkey, BBC Newsline.
Following the landmark Supreme Court ruling last week that found the current teaching of religious education in our schools is unlawful, the Education Minister today said schools with a Christian ethos will be protected. Paul Given also revealed that some parents have called for the cancellation of school nativity plays. Our political correspondent Jane McCormack reports.
3, 2, 1.
And just like that, the countdown to Christmas is on, even at Stormont. But don't assume the season of goodwill approaching means all is harmonious on the hill. While Paul Given posed for photos with pupils from Ballyholme Primary, outside his party leader was asked what the Education Minister will do after last week's court ruling on RE in schools here.
There are issues that the Education Minister is going to consider about how that happens in terms of the judgment. But last week's judgment didn't bring an end to collective Christian worship, nor did it bring an end to the ability for children to learn about all faiths.
What's taught in RE and said in school assemblies will change as a result. Back inside, the Minister later came under pressure to spell out the next step.
What the judgment, though, doesn't say is that you need to change the Christian approach towards collective worship. It doesn't say that. So we will look through all of this very much with a pragmatic view. in terms of its approach. But what I would also say to members is this is something which a lot of the religious denominations have not reacted negatively per se to.
But then came accusations that Paul Given is treating those with a different approach to faith negatively.
There's a bit of a devil on your shoulder. On one hand, there's the minister who wants to respond pragmatically to a judgment and sensitively, and then there's the other person who wants to talk about witchcraft and bait people from different perspectives. Can I ask that in proceeding, for once and genuinely with goodwill, can you not listen to the devil on your shoulder?
I don't think anyone will be able to second guess my approach that I will take forward in this respect. But when there are other people within this chamber who haven't been able to answer what was very basic questions around paganism and witchcraft, well then we should ask those questions.
I did welcome this judgment because my child's rights are just as equal value to your child's rights and anyone else's. Many faith groups have welcomed this judgment, and so too have those of no faith.
And if there was any doubt over the future of one religious tradition in schools,
we have parents contacting schools demanding that nativity plays are cancelled, not just in light of this Supreme Court judgment, but years before this has happened. I can give an absolute categoric answer. Nativity plays can continue to take place within our schools.
our parties will never sing the same tune on religious education. This ruling might just relight the debate. Jane McCormack, BBC Newsline, Stormont.
Well, also at Stormont today, we got some reaction to last week's damning report into how executive ministers behaved behind the scenes during the pandemic. Baroness Hallett's report from the COVID-19 inquiry said disputes between Sinn Féin and the DUP ministers marred the decision-making process. Let's get more from our political editor, Enda McLafferty, who's standing by for us in the Great Hall. Good to see you, Enda. This is the first time MLAs have been back in the chamber since this report landed. How did it go?
Well, lots of festive feel at Stormont today, Declan, as you can see, but that didn't extend to the Assembly chamber, where both Sinn Féin and the DUP felt the heat over that report last week, which effectively said that both parties had put their own political interests ahead of the people of Northern Ireland at critical moments during the pandemic. Now, the DUP leader, Gavin Robinson, was here earlier today, rejected much of the findings and criticised, indeed, Baroness Hallett, saying she didn't understand how politics in Northern Ireland worked. Well, the debate today was triggered by a question posed by the TUV's Timothy Gaston, and he once again challenged Michelle O'Neill today over her attendance at Bobby Story's funeral.
Senior Republicans can breach restrictions with impunity, while ordinary people were criminalised for far less. This is a scandal about two-tier policing, about rule makers who, in full view of the TV cameras, became rule breakers.
Now, Michelle O'Neill said later in the chamber that she had dealt with this before and had apologised for any hurt caused. On the wider substance of the report, she made it very clear that lessons will indeed be learned from what happened back then.
In terms of the inquiry, I do think it's important that the public understand that we are taking on board lessons learned. We were faced with an unprecedented global pandemic. All four parties of the executive, I believe, worked really hard to get people through that. Was it perfect? Far from it. Did we get everything right? Absolutely not. But that's where the lesson need to come from.
And Enda, while we have you this evening, Sinn Féin also facing questions today over this official decision not to prosecute a man over that portrait that was damaged at Belfast City Hall. What more can you tell us? Well, you might remember in October last year, a portrait of the DUP's Lord Browne was damaged during an event at Belfast City Hall. At the time, Sinn Féin issued a statement, said that an employee of the party had come forward to say that they had been involved in an incident involving a portrait in Belfast City Hall, and they had subsequently resigned from the party. There then followed a police investigation, but the PPS today said that there will be no prosecution because of what it described evidential gaps. Now, in a statement from the PPS, they said that the Sinn Féin employee made no admission of any guilt in their resignation statement. They said a man was questioned, but he refused to answer any questions, and the CCTV in that part of the building hadn't been working for some time. So there's question posed today of Sinn Féin as to what exactly happened in this particular case. The party says this was a matter for the PPS, and as far as it is concerned, it fully cooperated with the police investigation. Enda, live at Stormont for us this evening. Thank you very much. And after what was a busy day at Stormont, our coverage continues on the BBC News NI website. You'll also, of course, find it, as ever, on the BBC News app. But still to come here on BBC Newsline before 7 o'clock. Tributes to the Irish fashion designer Paul Costelloe, who has died at the age of 80. Now, a major city centre route in Belfast that's been shut for more than a year is finally reopening this week. Durham Street closed during the demolition of the historic Boyne Bridge and construction around the new Grand Central Station. For local businesses, this can't come a moment too soon. They hope it will avoid the pre-Christmas traffic snarl-ups that we saw last year. Our community correspondent Mark Simpson has this update.
If all goes according to plan, this road, Durham Street, will finally reopen at 8 o'clock on Saturday morning. The Boyne Bridge has now gone. There is still work going on, but 2 new lay-bys have been put in place and should be operational by Saturday morning for drop-off and pick-up from the nearby Grand Central Station. The hope is that all car drivers will use the new lay-bys rather than stop on the Grosvenor Road at the side entrance to the station.
Grosvenor Road is an urban clearway, so it's not suitable for drop-off, and that's not going to change. What we want to do is move the drop-off around onto Boyne Bridge Place and encourage that access. Plus, it gives particularly people with disabilities or reduced mobility level access, straight into the station from that location.
The reopening of Durham Street will not be a magic wand which suddenly solves all of Belfast's traffic problems in the month before Christmas. But there's no doubt it should help. Mark Simpson, BBC Newsline in the city centre.
As we speak this evening, Mid and East Antrim Council is discussing renaming a street in Carrickfergus. It follows last month's decision by King Charles to formally remove his brother Andrew's royal titles over his links to convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. Residents of Prince Andrew Way seem to be in favour of calling it after another royal, as Grania Connolly has been finding out today.
Prince Andrew Way in Carrickfergus is one of a number of streets here named after Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. But the local council could be set to change that. A proposal is being brought to Mid and East Antrim Council tonight following a decision by the King to remove Andrew's official titles.
The motion being brought forward by the Alliance Party proposes that Council will work to rename Prince Andrew Way while maintaining links to the royal family. But what do people here in Carrickfergus think?
I think they should change it, yes, but to another royal name.
I would like it changed to Prince William.
King George, that sounds good.
Definitely should be renamed, yeah, absolutely, 100%. Because it's not a good look for Carrick now, is it,
I think it just should remain the same. Why change it?
It doesn't really bother me what it's called, but I can see why people would sort of want to have it changed.
I think maybe it's a name that would be more endearing to Carrickfergus and its history, maybe.
One of the councillors involved in the motion said if the council agrees to the move tonight, it's just the first step in the name-changing process.
Part of it is we want to have people's thoughts come into that, but we also need to speak to the royal household, because you can't just decide we're going to name this after a royal. There's a lot of process that needs to be followed there. So we're going to ask tonight as council officers come back to us with how we do this and build in some sort of public consultation.
Changing street names due to controversy is not something that's done very often, but under the circumstances and with support from most parties, it seems likely to pass. Grania Connolly, BBC Newsline.
Tributes have been paid to the renowned Irish fashion designer Paul Costelloe, who has died at the age of 80. He was one of the most established names in Irish and British fashion, and for 15 years was personal designer to Princess Diana. In a statement over the weekend, his family said he'd suffered a short illness. Rory O'Reilly looks back.
Born in Dublin, where his father ran a company making raincoats, Paul Costelloe went on to become one of the most influential designers in British and Irish fashion, dressing everyone from Princess Diana to the Irish Olympic team. His career began at the Grafton Academy of Fashion Design before he moved on to the fashion capitals of Paris, Milan, New York and London. But it was his work with the Princess of Wales for which he'll be remembered by many. In 1983, he was appointed as her personal designer, a collaboration which continued until her death.
I go over to Kensington Palace with my bag of goodies, which is maybe 6 selected styles that I feel are most suitable for her.
However, his career was not always smooth sailing. He was criticised in 1998 for these comments.
Irish women, I think, have difficulty with style because it's not in their inner nature, i.e. like the Italians.
In recent years, he said his views had changed and that he felt Ireland was now more European. For one local knitwear designer, she has fond memories of the first time she met him at university.
We were all very nervous to meet him because he seemed to have risen to a certain level of stardom at that time. Any magazine you opened was carrying pieces of his fashion collection.
For the past 20 years, he collaborated with Dunnes Stores on a successful fashion and homeware line. Then last month, he was the closing designer for the inaugural Ireland Fashion Week, and he continued to oversee all his collections from his London studio until the day he died.
Irish fashion designer Paul Costelloe, who has died at the age of 80. Now, hundreds of people have attended a memorial service to mark 75 years since the Omagh rail tragedy. 5 railway workers died when they were hit by a train as they worked on the line. It was back in 1950, but has shaped the lives of some who are still in the town. Our South West reporter Lynn Mitchell has been speaking to them.
A railway line is back in Omagh, but there won't be any trains running, as this 1950s relic is here to commemorate Omagh's worst rail tragedy. More than 200 people turned out to remember the 5 men who lost their lives 75 years ago. John Cassidy, John Cleary, John McCrory, Dan McCrory and Charlie Flanagan, whose son was only 9 months old when he was killed.
Seeing I was only a baby, you see, I wouldn't remember much. But I heard my mother talking about him and all, things like that. So, well, he was a ganger man on the railway line in 1925, and he was working there in 25 years when he was killed. When he was 50, when he died. And he had 2 or 3 brothers and a sister. He was very quiet, worked for done all he could for his family and children. And he was a nice father as far as I know.
And it's lovely to keep their memory alive. Even for my children, it's just lovely to have all this archive for that, because it must have been just horrendous, for my granny.
Over the years, the knowledge of this accident has fallen by the wayside, but the local historians are keen to keep its memory alive.
It's very close to my heart. The people were all Omagh people, and it's very important that people remember their heritage, especially something as tragic that affected the town that way to such an extent, and the families of those people are still local.
We don't want this memory of them 5 railmen ever to be distinguished. It's important that that part of Omagh history should never be forgotten, should never.
And this piece of history will make sure that the next generation know what happened here. Elaine Mitchell, BBC Newsline in Omagh.
Now we turn to sport. The Ireland rugby team wrapped up their autumn internationals with a defeat to South Africa. Let's relive it all again. Here's Stephen. Hello.
Yeah, hello Declan. Yes, Ireland finished their November series with a 24-13 loss to the world champions. The Ireland coach, Andy Farrell, actually bristled when he was asked at his media conference did he think Ireland's performance was a little shambolic at times. And 2 former internationals have been giving us their assessment. Conor Murray thinks rugby's at what he calls a very weird stage when it comes to refereeing, after Ireland received 4 yellow cards and 1 red card. While Stephen Ferris believes the sport is broken and that the world's governing body has to make changes. Thomas Kane reports.
Very few opposition coaches have left Dublin celebrating in recent years. After a November of 2 wins and 2 losses for Ireland, it's time now to reflect and look at the bigger picture.
New Zealand out in Chicago, they were undercooked. There was a lot of rugbies that were just off the back of a Lions tour, and you could forgive them for not really performing. And the performance got much better, and I think Australia really got us believing again that we could possibly beat the world champions in our own backyard. But I think now on reflection, the overriding feeling is that there is a little bit of disappointment, and that's largely down to the last game.
Conor Murray doesn't believe his former coach Andy Farrell will panic.
He'll also be realistic with the lads and be like you've put in an unbelievable effort over the last month. I'm sure they'll have grown in certain areas, and there's areas to work on, like always. With the players they have, the coaches they have, the results they've had, they're 100% capable of winning the Six Nations.
Number 4 is an illegal clear.
After a weekend where rulings and refereeing grabbed most of the headlines, the sport itself is under the spotlight.
I just think that World Rugby need to find a way to not make a game 132 minutes long. I've had lots of people message me on social media to say, that they got bored during the game, and especially when you're trying to bring kids. Genuinely, it just felt like the game was broken. It just felt like it was broken. I didn't have a clue what was going on. If I didn't have a notion what was going on sitting at the sideline, then what's the other 52,000 people in the Aviva Stadium thinking? It was just a mess.
Challenges to address for Irish rugby and the world game moving forward. Thomas Kane, BBC Newsline.
Yes, roll on the Six Nations. Now, this was the state of the pitch at Healy Park in Omagh last night that forced the abandonment of the Ulster Club football semi-final between Newbridge and Scottstown. The game has been arranged for next Sunday, with Kilcoo awaiting the winners in the final. Here's Thomas Niblock.
In the pouring rain of Omagh, it was looking so good for Monaghan champions Scottstown at half-time. They led by 4 in conditions where it was extremely tough to score. A good first half. But the second half didn't happen. The match referee, Joe McQuillan, decided it was unsafe to continue, so the game was called off. Ulster GAA met last night, and the refixture will now take place next Sunday for a place in the Ulster final. That final will now take place on the 13th of December, delayed a week, but Kilcoo will be there. With just 3 minutes on the clock, they produced a dominant display against the Fermanagh champions Ern Gales. Kilcoo were expected to win, and many believe they'll win the final too. As for the Down champions, they're just happy to be in another showpiece.
There's probably 2 things to it. You just want to get over the line and get into the final. Semi-finals can be very, very tricky. On the other side, it's good to come out of this game with plenty to work on, because there's a lot of areas of our game that we would have been disappointed in. We didn't plan to play the way we did, especially in the first half, but listen, it's something to work on for the next day. We don't worry about tags that's given. You could be underdogs one day and favourites the next day. We just go after our performance, and that's it. If the external wants to give us tags, well, that's it.
The former All-Ireland club champions are still in the race. They'll know next Sunday whether it'll be Newbridge or Scottstown in the Ulster final. Thomas Niblock, BBC Newsline.
Well, in local football, Irish Premiership leaders Colerane's home game with Larne tomorrow night is now a top-of-the-table tussle. Coleraine still have the advantage over second-placed Larne, despite defeat in the latest round of matches.
16 games against Cliftonville, and Coleraine are still looking for a win. A Rory Hale goal settled the game and left the manager purring.
You watch football all weekend, you might see a better goal in terms of the way we moved, in terms of where we passed it, and then Rory's finish. So, yeah, listen, we dug in so well. We had to defend against a top side.
Next up for Coleraine tomorrow night, second-placed Larne, who beat Glenavon 2-1.
We're just going through the first round of all fixtures. There's still a long way to go. Nothing gets decided on Tuesday night, but we obviously go down there, and there's a chance in that to put ourselves top of the league.
Glentoran are third, despite defeat to Dungannon Swifts.
Oh, it's crept in!
The Glens manager said the performance was unacceptable.
Over the last 2 games we've been poor, and there's no way they dress it up. And we need to get back to the performances we had a number of weeks ago and show more courage.
Better though for their big 2 rivals Linfield. Matthew Fitzpatrick's goal handing the champions a valuable victory. Portadown were 2-1 winners over Carrick Rangers, thanks to goals by Ben Wiley and Eamon Fife. While Crusaders and Ballymena United battled to a 2-2 draw. This strike by Daniel Lafferty in the dying minutes, securing a point apiece.
Yeah, great equaliser. Now, finally tonight, the Belfast Giants won 2 out of 2 at the weekend in the Elite League. Victories over Coventry Blaze and the Guildford Flames leave them 6th in the standings. And time just to tell you that motorcyclist David Allingham will have official BMW backing for his challenge in the British Superstock Championship next season. He finished runner-up this year. Declan, you can read all about that story on the BBC Sport website.
Thank you very much for that, Stephen Watson. A little slice of autumn today captured at Ballymena. Quite blue skies, really. It has a kind of a warmer feel than it realistically was outside. By the way, if you want your picture on our wall, check out the BBC Weather Watchers. Barra, it is cold, isn't it?
It's cold. It's going to be cold over the next few nights. But on the upside, we've got sunshine. Yeah, it wasn't too bad a day today. Sunshine there in Ballymena, sunshine too in Belfast. We have more of that coming our way tomorrow before it turns more unsettled from the middle of the week. But it's also going to turn a little bit milder for a few days at least. Now, out there this evening, it is cold and we have some wintry showers maybe for the tops of the Sperrins. A few showers of a bit of a mix elsewhere. As temperatures tonight fall into the low single figures. The likes of Fermanagh, some countryside areas here could see a slight frost into tomorrow morning. So, yes, it's going to be a cold start to the day. But with a ridge of high pressure building across Ireland and the UK, a lot of dry, sunny weather in the forecast as well. Now, first thing, there is likely to be one or two showers dotted around. They will clear. Any frost will clear too, and by late morning, we're expecting a dry day. Tons of clear blue sky, sunshine right across the island, in fact. The winds are light, temperatures in and around average for the time of year, 8 or 9 degrees. Now, quite quickly after nightfall tomorrow, the temperatures are going to fall close to freezing. You'll see bits and pieces of frost there forming on the map. They will linger for a while, but not all night, and that's because we're going to have cloud coming in, and we're going to have some windier conditions, and on top of that, slightly milder air with a southerly wind. So by breakfast time on Wednesday, those temperatures should be sitting at about 6 or 7 Celsius. But there will be some outbreaks of rain coming in as well. So a bit of a wet start first thing on Wednesday. The rain clears. Behind it, it turns drier, but we are likely to see a lot of cloud with more unsettled weather coming our way from the Atlantic. So here's that rain first thing on Wednesday. You'll see it clearing out of the way. Lots of cloud following behind. It could give off a few spots of drizzle, but certainly much drier once the rain clears. Temperatures of 10 or 11 degrees. There's going to be no real change from those temperatures overnight into Thursday, staying in the double digits. And by the time we get into Thursday, we could see highs around 14 or even 15 degrees. That's about 5 degrees above average for the time of year. Short-lived into the weekend, temperatures falling back with some wet and windy conditions at times heading our way on Friday.
OK, Barra, for now, thank you very much. And that is BBC Newsline on this Monday evening. We're here all week, 6:30 on BBC One. As ever, thank you so much for watching, and we will see you tomorrow, all being well. Bye-bye.